What's up, freight brokers? Another day, another shot at this wonderful thing that we call life. Is that something to be excited about? I certainly think so. Today we're talking about your freight broker businesses and establishing credit. That's the one thing that most freight broker businesses will have in common. We all start out with that one problem. We don't have established credit just yet. So we have to go out and first move loads without established credit and establish good credit along the way. Now, why don't we have credit? Well, we're a new business and we have not paid any carriers just yet. So in order to establish the credit that we want as a freight broker, we have to go out and start paying carriers so they can look at our credit history and say, oh, okay, he takes about 21 days, 30 days to pay his carrier, so now he has a days to pay rating. He's establishing a credit rating because you're going to start off with what they call an N as in November rating, which means you're too new to rate. So if you're just getting started, you haven't moved any loads, that's how they see you in the system with that N rating. What we want to do is to move away from that N rating and get an A or a B rating, and then we can move loads with any carrier. Usually that takes about 6 to 12 months. I'm going to tell you the process of going through that and what you need to do in order to build your credit as a freight broker and not have any problems when it comes down to moving loads. So let's jump over into it. So you've gotten your first load. You're excited about that load. And then it's time now to go and start negotiating with carriers to move the load. So you go out to your load board and you post your load on your load board. And you start getting carriers calling you on it. So that's even more exciting. You know now that you're in a hot lane, you have carriers out there, you have capacity, and they're calling you on that load. And you start negotiating with carriers, and bam, you hit it. You and a carrier agree to move a load, and let's just say you have making $300 on this particular load. Well, the carrier says, go ahead and send me over your packet. So you send over your packet, and when he gets your packet, he gets all of your information, including your motor carrier authority, and then he sends your information to his factoring company. Factoring company takes a look at your company MC number, and they say, whoa, we cannot factor this broker. So another problem, right? Now, the not so good thing about this scenario is that it's another challenge, it's another hurdle that we have to find our way through. And don't we have enough hurdles already? But the good thing about it is that all freight brokers end up at this point. If you're working diligently, if you're doing your part, going through the process, you're supposed to end up at this point. And then it's about finding a way through it. Here's the first thing I recommend you do when you arrive at this place in your business. Number one, it's all about relationships, your relationship with the carrier. This is the key to determining whether you're going to move loads without established credit. And in order to do this, it's about making sure the carrier knows who you are, what you stand for, what you represent. Build a relationship with that carrier. I like to become very friendly with the people that I work with. People say all the time, oh, it's not about being friends. Yes, it is to me. Why not? Well, you know, when you look at the alternative, why be disruptive? Why be enemies? So no, I want to be friends with my carrier. I want him to know me and I want to know who he is. I want him to know that my main priority is to make sure that he's paid and paid on time. I want to make him aware of how I do business, how I pay my invoices. I want to call his attention to the fact that I'm not looking for cash in a cash account somewhere to hopefully be able to pay his invoice when that time comes. No, I'm backed by a factoring company, and the factoring company will pay all of my invoices. I want to give him the representative that I work with at the factoring company. I want him to be comfortable with knowing that we have everything in place to ensure that he gets paid and get paid on time. Now, we're building relationships with this carrier because we want to move loads not only now, but in the future as well. And a part of doing that is saying, okay, this is who we are. This is what we do. Are you comfortable with that? Once I make sure and I'm okay and I feel like he's comfortable with me, I'm doing that for a reason, because I'm moving toward a question, a very important question that I want to pose to him. I'm going to say to him, hey, Mr. Carrier, would you be comfortable coming outside of your factoring company and working with me directly? And I shut up. I don't say anything else. And I let him talk. And he may go through and he may say, hey, I'm not sure. I just want to make sure that I get paid on time. Hey, that's exactly what we've already talked about. I'm going to make sure that happens. I know you can't afford not to get paid. I'll make sure that happens. You have my word on that. And oftentimes, after you've built that relationship, when that carrier is comfortable with you, he will come outside of that factoring company and work directly with you. And your carrier or your factoring company can pay him. Now, sometimes he still won't be comfortable with that. When my carriers aren't comfortable with going direct, if they're just saying, hey man, I believe you, I think you would, but I just can't take that chance of not getting paid. I understand that. What I want to do then is I'm going to go and say, hey, can I get your factoring company's information? Because what I want to do now is call a factoring company and try to get set up on what is called a one-load move. Oftentimes, factoring companies will set you up on a one-load move when the total amount of the invoice is $1,000 or less. So if they set you up, then what you do is you go ahead and move that load. They want to move any other loads with you until you pay for that load. Once you pay, then you can go ahead and start moving another load. So it's a slower process, but it still allows for you to establish credit. And that's what we want to be able to do. Move loads and establish credit. Now, sometimes you're going to go ahead and move away from carriers because it's just not going to work. But then there are other times, especially when you're in lanes where there's really tight capacity, where you don't have a whole lot of trucks. You already have this guy that has agreed, but we just have this little problem. So sometimes you'll make another offer. You'll say, hey, I'll pay you half of the load up front. Will that work out? Instead of using a factoring company, my factoring company or your factoring company, to make sure you get paid, I'll give you half of the money up front, and when you complete, I'll give you the other half. Will that work? Sometimes they'll go for that. And then sometimes they'll say, you know what? That's not going to work. But if you pay me the entire amount up front, I'll go with that. I've done that on several different occasions. Many different times I've had to pay carriers the full ride up front. You don't have a whole lot of negotiation room sometimes. You're not going to have a whole lot of leverage, so you have to go with that. The one thing that I always like to do, if a carrier says, hey, I need you to pay me up front, what I want him to do for us is to go and pick up the load, show me the BOL, and show me that that load is on his back. When he shows me that, then I'll go ahead and pay for that load. Now, what I've talked to you about so far has been more directed toward owner-operators. We try to start out with owner-operators because we figure we have more in common with owner-operators. But it would be a mistake to neglect bigger carriers. Bigger carriers sometimes don't go through factoring companies, so there's no need to get past that point. All you're dealing with is the trucking company. And sometimes they're just looking for a load. They pick up that load, and they send you an invoice and expect that you pay them. I work with a company like this called Birchwood Transport. I would move a lane every week, and whenever I would pick up the lane on a Tuesday, they would always have a truck there. So if I saw the lane coming up and I knew we were going to pick it up on Tuesday, I would call ahead of time and let them know, hey, we're going to have that load that's picking up on Tuesday. Do you have a truck available? He'll go ahead and say yes. They'll send the truck over. Once the truck picks up and delivers, they send out an invoice. They never check my credit. They just expect that we pay them on time. We did that, and it allowed for us to build our credit and move loads at the same time without having any credit. Now, when you start to build your credit, start to paying carriers, you have to report it somewhere. So I had a company that I worked with called transcredit.com. Transcredit is a credit reporting agency, so when you start moving loads and paying carriers, you report it to Transcredit. And what they do is they call up your carriers and verify that Brandon over at Alliance Logistics paid this carrier. They want to know how many days it took me to pay that carrier. And what they do is they start to establish a days to pay rating for me, establish a credit rating. Same way with Truck Stop, your load board. Truck Stop will send you out a credit reference sheet every 90 days. And when they send those sheets out, you're just going to write down on the credit reference sheet who you've paid, what carriers you've paid within that period. They'll do their check. Once they do their check, they'll start to establish a credit rating for you. We have to get that credit rating established. We have to have it reporting somewhere, because when you have a Truck Stop load board, it's going to show when you report a load, it'll say what type of credit you have. So if you're reporting your credit to Truck Stop showing that you're paying carriers, it'll improve your credit rating. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. This is not a problem that will solve itself. You have to solve this problem. Your credit and building that credit is a priority. It's going to make moving loads a whole lot easier. Thank you for spending some of your time with me today. If you want to learn more about the freight broker business, I'll leave a free link in the description. It's my 5-video series titled How the Load Movement Process Works. It will give you a chance to come into the office with me, watch over my shoulders, and I'll show you exactly how the business works. And if you want to know exactly how much it's going to cost you to start your own freight broker business, I'll leave a free video right here detailing the costs. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.